Yes, it can happen to the best of us. In this event, I'm going to talk about the time where I was under the impression that I was the main meal, only to find out I was actually the side dish. What can you say? Now, it can happen to us whether we're male or female. So this one is for all of us, especially the ones who are kind of really taken by surprise. So on this one, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm very cautious when it comes to meeting people, dating people, and then getting into relationships with people. And it's just the way I am. I like to make sure I have all of my ducks in a row. At least we think we do. So I'm going to fast forward to the actual action part of this whole event. So just imagine that I've met someone, we've talked for a while on the phone, we've gone out on a few dates, we've decided together that we're going to be in a relationship. Notice I didn't say committed because one of us wasn't, of course. But those things happen. So let me just get on with this whole event. Now, this particular guy I met through how did I meet him? A work event, I know, but he didn't work with me. It's just that it was a conglomeration of um, companies that were coming together to hire new people. And so his company was doing that, and my company was doing that. So we were both at an event where we were taking in applications and looking at people and things like that. Well, as I said, we're fast forwarding to us actually being in the relationship, so you don't have to hear all of that happening. But anyway, this fella worked at an organization as a um, contractor. So he would go into homes or his company would go into homes to rebuild them, renovate them, similar to what we were doing at the organization that I worked with, which was making affordable housing for low to moderate income people. So he would do the work on the house, him and it was a whole crew. Well, some of the houses were right in my neighborhood. And so, um, he and I would see each other throughout the day or whatever. I would be at my office, but sometimes just getting from one of the properties to the other, we would see each other and hi, bye, whatever. Well, on this particular day, he had parked because one of the houses he was working on was just a few blocks away from me. He had his work truck in my driveway. And then he had gotten into one of the other crew's vehicles and they drove over to the work site together. So keep in mind, this is where this whole thing starts. So I'm at home on this particular day, and I get a knock at the door. No big deal. I go to it, and there's a woman there, and she says to me, and she's really very friendly, very amicable. And she says, "Is the man who owns this truck? Does he live here?" And he didn't live with me because, as you know, I don't do. Let's talk about something else. I said, no. I said, but he works with my company. Is there a problem? Now, at this time, I wasn't going to say I'm dating him and he works in my company. I'm like, well, I didn't know what her purpose was for being at the door. And she said, do you, and I said, he had driven with some of the crew members and they were working at a house in the area. And so she asked me what was my relationship with them. Is that how that went? Yeah, she asked me, how did I know him? And I said, well, he works on, the properties that are in the neighborhood. And I said, and we happen to be dating. And at this point, I'm like, why is she asking me about that? And then she said, did he tell you that he was living with someone? And I go, well, of course not. If he had told me, well, I shouldn't say, of course not. Some women do date men that are in relationships, but I wasn't one of them. So I said, no, well, no, he didn't. And she said, do you know where he's at right now? And I said, not only do I know where he's at, I'm going to take you to the site of the house that he's working on. Because in my mind, at this point, I'm like, okay, first of all, I, I'm the kind of person that if something like that is going on, I'm not mad at the woman because more than likely she's been lied to. I said more than likely. This is not to say that all men lie, but I'm saying when they're in a relationship and they're not telling someone else and they're trying to get another relationship, more than likely they're not telling the truth about something. But again, she was simply asking me because she saw his truck. So she had every reason in my mind to ask about that. But anyway, I told her I would take her directly to where he was at. And so she already had her vehicle and I had mine, of course. So I told her, I said, just follow me. He's just a few blocks over and you'll be able to see him. Okay. So she follows me directly. I park at, they have a couple of cars in the driveway because they're working on this house. So I park right behind one of theirs, and this woman parked on the street. So when he first sees my car, because I'm the one that's in the driveway, he smiles and waves, "Hey, Sherry, how are you doing?" I'm like, a little bit better than what you're going to be doing in a few minutes. And then this lady gets out of her car and he sees her and he sees me. And I swear to God, if you had saw the look on his face, and I'm pretty sure he had a hammer in his hand and he dropped it. And he goes, I'll just say her name is Shelly. He goes, Shelly. And she goes, yeah. And he goes, how did you know where I was at? And she points at me and she says, I went to her house. I saw your truck at her house and I stopped and she told me she told me she knew where you were at. So now I'm looking at him and I was like, do you want to let me know who this is? He doesn't say anything and she walks up to him and she says, well, who is this lady to you? Again, he says nothing. So she hauls off and everyone that knows me knows I don't advocate for violence at all, period, no matter what the situation is. But she hauls off and slaps him right in the face, open palm. And of course, he turns his head, or she turned it for him. And then she says, again, how do you know her? He doesn't say anything. She slaps him again. Ow, right across the face. And then she says, I'm going to ask you one more time, how do you know her? And he just didn't, he just stood there. And as she went to reach again to, give him another good wallop, he catches her hand in midair and he said, I'm not going to let you hit me again. You can either leave because I'm at work and we can talk about this later, but that's not going to happen, meaning she's not going to hit him again. So at this point, she said, yeah, we're definitely going to talk about this later. And then I don't have anything to say because I'm like, okay, this has told me everything I need to see, I need to hear, I need to know. And with me, again, I'm different than most people. When things like this happen, I'm done. You don't have to worry about ever calling me again. You don't have to come by my house. You don't even have to explain anything to me because what is there to explain? So as I'm walking back to my car, this woman comes over to me and she says, you were really kind and now um, I really appreciate it. And she said, and I can see why he would, want to cheat with you. You're beautiful, you're funny, you seem to be a really nice person. And I should say that when she first came and she had asked me when we were still at my house, how did I know him? And we got to talking. She and I talked for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So that's why she was saying you're nice, you're funny. And I was like, yeah, I can take you to where he's at. So um, she left and, I left. I went on and went back home. And of course, he had to come back to my place to get his truck. So at the end of the day, he came by and of course he was very solemn, didn't say much. I wasn't going to say anything because I was like, I think you got other bigger fish to fry than to worry about me. But I did let him know that the relationship was over with for me and that I didn't have any, I know it's kind of difficult to say I didn't have any hard feelings, but my thing is, okay, what happened happened. Um, I was taken for a ride. Um, I mean, he's going to be who he is. So me saying, "Why did you do that? I can't believe it." I was like, none of that mattered to me. The point was that it happened. The point was I need to know what I was going to do from there and what my next steps would be. And if it and it didn't include him, so there was no need for me to, you know, I'm just not that way. I don't, as I said in my Best of Friends books, I don't chase men and I don't follow them. Okay, so I did tell him. I said I have one question. Well, I said one question, but one question leads to another. And I said, "How long have you two been living together?" And he said, 8 years. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then I said, well, how would she know to, be around in this area? I mean, she saw your truck. What are the odds of that? You guys are not going to believe this crazy crap. So I don't even know how to explain it, but like my house is right here. So, to come up to the front door right here. And then if you go this way, you're in my backyard. So I have a pretty big backyard. On the other side of my backyard was her fence. So she lived right behind my house. Duh. I'm like, he actually, not even trying to be funny about any of this, but he actually had a good thing going on because he could really just go out back and jump a fence and be at his other woman's house. I mean, it wasn't funny at all during that time, but you got to think about the creativeness of some people, when they're doing this stuff. But that was the end of that, and I told him, I didn't want to see him again, and it was all good, all this fair and love and war. And then about 3 days later, this woman comes back over to my house, and she knocks on the door. I opened it up, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on, Shelley?" And she said that she wanted to apologize to me because she now understood that that would have been a shock for me as well. And she didn't think about my feelings during that time, only, what she was feeling. And I was like, you don't owe me an apology. I said, that doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm not upset that he was with you or anything. He was, you're the one that was with him. But she was really, really nice, really genuine, really sincere, and it's almost like she felt bad that he did me like that. And I'm like, I didn't have 8 years invested in this knucklehead. You did. But I didn't say that, of course. But I'm just thinking of how close in proximity these two places were. I was like, you can't make this stuff up. So that was, of course, many years ago. Um, Sad note, that person, the woman, Shelley, she actually wound up passing away. She had wound up, this was a few years later, and um, she had cancer. So she wound up passing away. And believe it or not, because I mean, these stories can't be any wilder than they are. Afterwards, he came to tell me that she had passed away and everything, and that she had never changed her will. So she had him listed on her work documents as the person to receive, the insurance and all of that. So he wound up being able to, get a new car and get a place and all of that. Um, yeah, that story was very, very interesting. And he had said that he had actually talked with her about that, because they broke up, before she passed away. So it wasn't too much longer after the incident with us that he and she broke up because he was still seeing other people and she had gotten fed up at some point. But she had told him, at least this is his story to me, before she passed away, that she meant for him to still have, benefit from her passing away, and that she didn't have any children and she had never been married, so she said she didn't have anyone else that she even wanted to it to go to. So that's fine. But yeah, that one was very interesting. And just so you know, that was so many years ago that that person, he has now also passed away. A friend of mine called me And by that time, I was no longer living in Michigan, but a friend of mine called me and she said, he's sick, and he's looking for you. He wanted to know if I could, give you his phone number. And I was like, for what? And she said, he just wanted to apologize. He never meant to hurt you, and on and on and on. And I'm like, he was already forgiven. There's no reason to give him my phone number. No, I'm not interested in talking to him or, hearing anything he had to say. And so I just asked her not to pass my information along. He knew that I had moved out of Michigan by word of mouth from other people and everything. So he was just trying to, see if I would be willing to connect with them. Just, I guess, for him to really say he was, genuinely sorry. And I wasn't upset or mad about the whole thing. But my thing is, again, once I've moved on. There's no need for you to call me or contact me or get anything off your conscience or off your heart or off your shoulders or off your back. I mean, it was all good for me. So, a few months after that friend called me, she sent me a copy of his obituary to let me know that he had passed away as well. So, I guess when you think about it, it's all's well that ends well. Okay, that was ugly. But yeah, that was the story when I found out that I was the one that was the other woman. But again, life lessons learned. So remember my mantra: knowledge is in the knowing, and wisdom is in the doing. And by that, I mean to know a thing is good and well, but when you actually have learned things, you move on, you apply those lessons in your life, and you adapt them to moving forward so that you can make better choices. So, yeah, that's it. I will see you guys on the next tale.